Call of Duty has been around for 20 years now. It might be older than some of you, and with all that time, we've had hundreds and hundreds of multiplayer maps, ranging from insanely fun to I'm leaving the lobby. One aspect that is highly underrated when it comes to the maps is how good they look. If a map is bleak and dreary, you're more likely to not enjoy it as much. However, that's not always the case. But we don't care about that today, because I'm going to be telling you what the worst looking map is in every Call of Duty game from COD 4 to Modern Warfare 2022. Time to take a look at some gross looking maps. COD 4 Bog. When I started to make my picks for the worst looking maps, I was shocked to realize that most Call of Duties don't have really bad looking maps. I don't think Bog looks particularly bad, but it doesn't look great either. We got a pile of trash in the middle of it, surrounded by buildings and highways falling apart. But I really picked Bog because in COD 4 Remastered, they made Beach Bog, which shows you how good this map can look by simply changing a few textures and looks. We get to have an ocean off to the side and more greenery on the map. Overall, Bog was solid, but didn't look quite as good as some of the other ones. World at War Roundhouse. This one I actually think looks gross. Roundhouse was one of the many tank maps in World at War that would have played better without the tanks, because people would just take over 70% of the map with those things. The design is made very clear with the name. It's a big circle, and what makes it look bad isn't that all the buildings and walls are falling apart, it is that there's no color to be seen on it. The entire thing is just different shades of gray. I'm curious, did you guys like the tanks in World at War? Modern Warfare 2, Skid Row, honorable mention to Karachi. I ended up picking Skid Row because Karachi had some extra color in it, with there being a lot of reddish tones on the buildings. Whereas Skid Row just had the greenish tint over the entirety of the map that made it look much worse in my opinion. While the broken down building is a mess and doesn't look great, it was very fun to play on because it was all about the short to mid-range combat fitting in with Call of Duty arcade shooters MO. And what made this map great is that the main building was hard to hold down unless you had a whole team in perfect communication with each other, because there are so many entrances and ways to flank or push someone camping in there. I also feel like this map is forgotten about. Be honest, when was the last time you thought about it? If you would like me to make another video in the Every COD series, make sure to like and comment to let me know. And make sure to subscribe for more Call of Duty rankings as well as helpful Warzone content. Black Ops 1 Silo honorable mention stockpile. This is from the first DLC pack, and it is a giant map, and it's great for sniping with the GOAT L96A1. I personally had a blast playing it, but it leaves some stuff to be desired with its visuals. And a fun fact is that it was originally supposed to be a launch map, but it got delayed, so they then added it to the initial DLC pack. It's set in a Russian nuclear plant during the time period of the Soviet Union, which that will probably explain why it looks so bad. It does a great job of capturing the look it's going for. And you didn't have to snipe on this map because of all the cover in the open areas of the map, which is why I think it still played well even though it was the largest map in all of Black Ops 1. I made this video because of this poll right here. Make sure to vote on the new one that is live now to determine what the next Call of Duty video I make is. Modern Warfare 3 Interchange, honorable mention to Downturn and Bakara, and I ended up not picking those last two because I picked them for the worst and most underrated maps in Modern Warfare 3, and I didn't want to have any repeats. So Interchange got the call up for this video. And it is set in a dismantled freeway in New Jersey that was bombed within the campaign of Modern Warfare 3. It is a cool way to incorporate the campaign into multiplayer, but it did make for an ugly map that had a bluish tint over it. While the destroyed cars and roads didn't look good and wasn't a fan favorite at the time, it did play pretty well as a medium-sized map. The gameplay in the background is from my vault in Modern Warfare 3. Whenever I got Interchange, I would run Specialist and go for Moabs, because for some reason I always played great on it and just knew how to play this map based on where the enemy was spawning. I honestly think it was my top Moab map in the game, so for that I always liked it. Black Ops 2 Overflow. It is extremely difficult finding Treyarch maps that look outright bad, which you've probably noticed from my picks so far. This one is set in the ruined streets of Pakistan, and the streets got ruined by a flood, as you'll probably be able to see based on there being boats in the middle of the streets. And yet it still looks pretty good in some sections, but when you have to compare this to other Black Ops 2 maps based on appearance, it doesn't stand up to things like Hijacked, Cove, Standoff, Carrier, etc. But Overflow was a mid-sized map that focused on close to mid-range combat that was really fun to play on, and it wasn't even one of the top 5 maps for Black Ops 2, but would be better than every single map in Modern Warfare 2022. We need to remember and appreciate maps like Overflow. Ghost, Tremor with a dishonorable mention to Chasm, which I would have picked if I hadn't already picked it as the worst map in Call of Duty Ghosts. And Tremor is set in Austin, Texas, and my name is Austin, which made this an unfortunate choice that I had to make. make. And the map is torn apart because of a massive explosion that is still creating tremors every few minutes that you also get to experience while playing the map, where your screen will just randomly shake. And it's set in a medical center with everything from hospitals to pharmacies. And overall, it is mid-sized, but features a plethora of close quarters areas. And Ghost had a lot of bad launch maps, which made this average map seem pretty good in comparison. Also, this may be one of the most forgotten maps in Call of Duty history, because I didn't even remember it until I was going through to pick my maps and I was scrolling through Ghosts, and I was like, what the hell is this? Advanced Warfare Comeback. It is based in Lagos right after it was attacked, which has most of the buildings in disarray. There is some color on the buildings, but overall there isn't anything great to see. And like most Advanced Warfare maps, it focuses on having a lot of verticality to go along with its exo jumping. If there's a structure, you can most likely get on top of it and shoot down. It felt like a very small map, but it actually is considered mid-sized. But with the faster movement, you can get from one side to the other extremely fast. Overall, I think it was alright, but nothing to write home about. Black Ops 3 Exodus. This map doesn't even look bad, but Black Ops 3 has the best looking maps in Call of Duty history, so it's impossible to find one that looks truly awful. If you don't believe me, go ahead, look it up on Google, Black Ops 3 maps, and just see how beautiful they look. Exodus still has a nice garden on one side and then broken rooftops on the other that look out onto the ocean. But the middle of the map and inside of the buildings don't look good, so that's what made me pick it here, because I had to nitpick these Black Ops 3 maps to be able to make a selection. This was designed as a quarantine zone in Singapore and was fairly small, making it very fast paced. It was a decent map once they fixed the issues it had at launch. Infinite Warfare Crusher. This game had a lot of fun with its map locations and made for some really nice looking ones overall. This specific one was set on Mars and had giant equipment in the backdrop. The inside of the map left a lot to be desired, however, as it looked fairly bland in comparison to the rest of the game. But what made me choose it as the worst looking map for Infinite Warfare was the backdrop. Outside of the equipment, it just looks like a desert. And I get that it's supposed to be on Mars, and that makes sense, but we don't get any stars, moons, or planets in the sky, and no cool stuff in the barren land like the giant skeleton in Teresa. Every other map that felt less inspired in the interior made up for it with the exterior, and that's why Crusher had to be the selection. World War II V2. This is another game where I didn't feel like any map was truly ugly, but a selection had to be made, and I picked the German rocket facility with the V2 rocket right in the middle, aka the nuke from COD World War II, which is cool in and of itself. It was small and fast-paced, which made the map fun to play on. It was just a small square that was mainly in the open with concrete and steel structures surrounding it. There's nothing particularly ugly about this map, but there's nothing that looks particularly good either. There isn't cool architecture, war-torn buildings, or foliage. They just needed to spruce it up a little bit more. Black Ops 4 Payload honorable mention goes to Frequency. The reason these two maps are mentioned here is because I find the buildings and colors of the interior sections of them to be a little bit less desirable. But Payload got the selection because Frequency's surrounding area of giant mountains looked far better than the snowy terrain around Payload. And it's located in Iceland, which would make you think that it would look far better because Iceland is a beautiful country, but Treyarch managed to make it look just okay. The map is supposed to be a defensive launch facility that has enemies trying to infiltrate and steal a nuclear warhead. And to be fair, that does sound like a really cool premise for a map, but I think they could have made it just look a little bit better. Modern Warfare 2019 Al Rob Airbase. Hopefully I said that right. The airbase has been repurposed as a US forward operations base as seen by the US flags located across the whole map. The reason this late DLC was picked is because of how uninspired it looks. The whole map is just repurposed buildings that we have seen in earlier multiplayer maps and Verdansk. They made no effort to create new things to give it a brand new feeling. Even when it was brand new, it felt old. MW 2019 lost the fun design element that Infinite Warfare added to making multiplayer maps and back to their washed out colors with browns, grays, and muted blues. Infinity Ward needs new lead developers badly because they've fallen off a cliff in terms of quality when it comes to multiplayer outside of the search and destroy mode. Cold War Echelon, I really feel like I said that wrong, but whatever. It's set in Berlin, Germany, and its location has the nickname of Devil's Mountain, which is pretty cool. And it is the location of Perseus's latest operation that was partially blown up during an attack, which creates some openings in the roofs, which help make air score streaks a little bit better. Overall, it's a mid-sized map that is decent to play on, but as you've probably started to gather from this video, I don't think these types of maps look very good. They basically have little color and super basic buildings. So while I didn't dislike this map, I still didn't typically want to play play on it because of the dreary look. Vanguard sub-pins. I don't like repeating maps, weapons, or anything in my Call of Duty series videos, but god, sub-pins blows all the way around. This wasn't too bad in Warzone, but for multiplayer, it plays terrible and looks just as bad. There wasn't any other maps that looked even close to as bad as this one. The lighting gives this map a greenish tint on top of all the gray concrete and steel that just make it look like barf. I've already spent too much time talking about this map. I feel bad giving a Vanguard thing this much hate when the game already gets plenty of it. Modern Warfare 2022, Farm 18. It makes me sad to pick this one because it's one of the better maps inside of the newest MW2. It is a military training and shooting facility located in Castovia, and it actually has some amount of greenery and foliage, but the buildings and architecture once again just leave so much to be desired. It is just so bland and has no soul to it, which I think is the biggest issue with the latest Infinity Ward titles. I feel like the developers just don't care or have passion for their games anymore, and that shows up with their lack of visual design choices with their multiplayer maps. The only ones that look good are just copies of real-life places that they didn't have to put any effort into coming up with the visual design choices. For example, we have Crown Raceway, Valderas Museum, and Breenberg Hotel. What are all those? Those are just copying real places. Like I said earlier, Infinity Ward could use hiring some new people. Now that I got that rant out of the way, do you agree with all my picks for worst looking map, or would you change some of them? Make sure to let me know in the comments, and if you like this video, you'll also love this video from the Every Call of Duty series on screen here. Peace.